Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. Let's get you to the pulse on everything you need to know. And we are here at the gorgeous Demarest School Auditorium, located at 158 4th Street in the beautiful city of Hoboken, New Jersey. And we are here for the New Jersey District-8 Congressional Candidates Forum. And this is the highlight show. But tonight couldn't take place without our wonderful sponsors for this event. And they are the Mile Square Taxpayers Association, Joe Barry, State Senator Raj Mukherjee, County Commissioner Chair Anthony Romano, Anthony Vitrano of Wykert Realtors, the Hoboken Democratic Committee, Hoboken Council members Tiffany Fisher, Ruben Ramos, and Michael Russo, and Jersey City Councilman Yusuf Saleh. We want to thank them so much. And why don't we get right to the action? But before we do, we also need to thank Director of Facilities here at the Hoboken Board of Education, Tim Callaghy, and the Hoboken Board of Education for use of this awesome auditorium. But enough of me. Let's get to our district candidates, which of course is the incumbent Congressman Rob Menendez versus the challenger Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bhalla. Enjoy, folks.
Well, thank you. Thank you for hosting tonight to tap into Pulse, to our moderators. Thanks to everyone who's here tonight. It's a privilege to be with you. And so we're running for re-election to continue serving the 8th Congressional District. 2 years ago, when our predecessor retired, we felt a need to be of service to this district. This is where I grew up, in Union City. I went to high school here in Hoboken. I live in Jersey City with my wife and 2 small children. And I felt that in this moment, it was a year after January 6th, that there was an immense amount of work to do. And ever since then, I felt an even greater sense of urgency to deliver for this district, to take on the challenges, both big and small. Here in the district, we've solved over 1,500, almost 1,600 cases for our constituents, ranging from immigration cases. Over 40% of the people that live in the district were born outside the country. So over 90% of the cases that we take on are immigration related. We brought back money for our residents. We brought back money for our municipalities, for our counties. We brought back over $11 billion for critical infrastructure investment through the Gateway Program, Northeast Corridor, brought back environmental justice grants to places like Elizabeth. And we've taken on the fights in Washington. We've amplified the voices of the people that call this place home. When we push back against MAGA extremism, when they come for reproductive rights, we've stood up. We've brought common sense solutions to end the scourge of gun violence in our communities. We've been at the forefront of pushing back on the really hateful, harmful rhetoric from Republicans around our immigrants, and push for sensible solutions there at our border and a more comprehensive approach to how we fix a broken immigration system. So for the last 2 years, we've been at work for every single resident of this district. I'm running for re-election because I want to continue the work. We have an incredible team that works every single day for this district. We have an incredible foundation. We have an incredible set of results in a short amount of time. I know that if we have the opportunity to continue to serve the district, we can continue to do so much more. And that's why I'm running for re-election and asking for your support to do so.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, everyone, joining us both in person and online on television. My name is Ravi Bhalla. I'm the 39th mayor of the city of Hoboken, and I was born and raised here in New Jersey, the son of immigrants from India. My parents came to this country and settled in Pennsylvania, living in a trailer park with a modest family upbringing. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in West Patterson, now known as Woodland Park. But my father believed in the promise of America. He believed in the promise of the American dream. He got his PhD degree in physics, started a small manufacturing business right here in New Jersey, and really is the living embodiment of the American dream. So in Hoboken, we have accomplished a lot. We are a story of success in many ways, but I cut my teeth in Hoboken at the very, very local level. I first ran as a committeeman, a Democratic committeeman in 2007, served as a committeeman to really understand local issues and what people are feeling on the ground. And that gave me a lot of experience in knowing what the needs are of the community in which I serve. and that created an opportunity to serve as a city councilman. And as a councilman, at that time, our bond status rating was junk bond status. We had a fiscal takeover in Hoboken. Property taxes rose by over 70% in one single year alone. And we needed change. And that's why I decided to run, because I wanted to make our community a better place to live. So I ran and served in Hoboken as a member of the city council for 8 years, 2 terms, served as a council president for 2 years, and then ran for mayor. I've been serving as mayor for over 6 years now, was reelected in 2021, and it was the first mayor in about 100 years to run unopposed. I think that's a product of a lot of the success that the mayor and the city council working together have achieved over the years. Whereas when I first came into office, we had junk bond status rating. Our credit rating with S&P and Moody's is now AA+, which is the second highest credit rating a municipality can have. Taxes are stable. We have a surplus for a rainy day. It's that kind of fiscal responsibility that we need to bring to the national level and the federal level. Also, in terms of earned accomplishments, as the mayor of Hoboken, our Vision Zero program is an international success story. We've gone 7 years without a single fatality. Our plan for Vision Zero is more ambitious than most cities. It aims for 0 fatalities or serious injuries by 2030, and we are well on our way to getting there. In climate change, we are also an international leader. We've innovated to combat the threats of climate change, whether that's through multiple resiliency parks, the most recent one, which can store up to 2 million gallons of water in a rainy day event, and making sure that we keep Hoboken resilient for years to come. It's so much of an important issue that we've elevated this topic to the departmental level. The first city in Hoboken, in New Jersey, to create its own Department of Climate Action and Innovation. And we've also looked at accountability in terms of making sure that we hold the people who are responsible for fossil fuels accountable. We're the first city to sue Big Oil. Later, the New Jersey Attorney General joined us in that lawsuit, and over 40 municipalities or public entities across the country have also filed lawsuits against Big Oil. So whether it's adaptation, mitigation, or accountability for the climate disaster, Hoboken has been an international leader. It's that kind of experience and innovation that we need in Washington. In Washington, we have a dysfunctional system of government. We have legislators who can debate and discuss policy issues to the left or to the right. But as mayors, we have real life challenges every single day that we have to solve. And the only way to solve those problems is by working with people that you might not always agree with. And you might not get 100% of what you want, but you need to work with other people to move your city forward. So Congress can use more people who have that kind of experience serving as an executive, having to have the responsibility of solving real problems.
All right, folks, we hope that you're enjoying the highlight reel of the New Jersey District 8 Congressional Forum between Congressman Menendez and Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bhalla. More to come after this commercial break. We will be right back. Peter Biancamano, your hostess with the mostest of the Pulse with Peter B. Folks, don't forget to go on our Facebook and our Instagram pages by searching The Pulse with Peter B, and like and follow us on each of those platforms. We're constantly updating those pages with previews of each week's segments and cool stories. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our email address at thepulsewithpeterb@gmail.com.
Healthcare is a top priority for many voters, with costs continuing to rise. Most healthcare systems do around or under 2% charity care, while Christ Hospital in Jersey City and Hoboken University Medical Center, their charity care numbers are just under 30%. What will you do to help save these and other hospitals like them, which serve working class residents without insurance and also populations of undocumented patients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we signed on to legislation that was introduced by my colleague from Massachusetts, Lori Trahan, bipartisan legislation that deals with this exact issue and making sure there's more federal funding for local hospitals that serve the exact population that you referenced, people that are there on Medicaid. And the 3 hospitals in this region that you mentioned serve those populations. So incredibly important that from a fiscal perspective, from a operational budgeting perspective, that they have the additional resources that they need, and whether it flows through the state or whether it's direct aid from the federal government through a grant program. That's what the legislation seeks to address. We also need to make sure that we continue to fund our federally qualified health centers because they are also at the front lines and they provide health care to the most marginalized communities. So we've had great partners. We have great federally qualified health centers, and the professionals there are incredible, whether it's North Hudson Action or there's 2 federally qualified health centers in Newark, one in Jersey City over by Berry Lane Park, and they do incredible work. So making sure that we push back against Republican threats to cut a lot of that critical funding for a lot of programs, including federally qualified health centers. But those are the 2 main things. One is a piece of legislation that we're a co-sponsor of, and the second is making sure that we fully fund and create more funding for federally qualified health centers and other similar healthcare providers that provide healthcare in urban communities to the folks who are most in need and may not have the economic means to access other services.
That's a great question. Healthcare is a human right, full stop. So we want to make sure we take that theory and put it into practice. I support Medicare for all. That's one contrast in terms of where the candidates differ. I support Medicare for all and the expansion of eligibility of residents who have access to Medicare for all. As it relates to our hospital system, the CarePoint hospital system, there is a strong need for structural change with respect to Hoboken University Medical Center, Christ Hospital, and Bayonne Hospital. They are bleeding right now. I'm working actively with the Commissioner of the Department of Health in Trenton, Commissioner Baston, to make sure that we take the steps necessary to create structural change. And that might mean partnering with a much more well-financed institution. It could be RWJ Barnabas, it could be a Hackensack University Cleveland Medical Center, it could be an institution across the river in New York City, but we want to create a process where nonprofit hospitals have the ability to survive without state aid. That can continue the state aid because it's a critical acute care facility, but if you keep kicking the can down the road, you're not going to create a long-lasting institution.
Although FBI statistics show that crime is going down nationally, we unfortunately lost a 21-year-old member of the Hoboken community, Damon Murray, due to homicide at the Housing Authority. How would you combat crime?
Sure, and it was a incredibly tragic incident that happened, and I know the community's been deeply impacted by it, and want to make sure that anything like that happens, we try to create solutions and make sure that those types of things don't happen again. In terms of, there was a question specifically about crime or violent crime. Sorry, I should have written it down. Both. We need to, crime is, we need to, one, make sure that we're thinking about our economy and thinking about our economy and starting with our educational opportunities and making sure that everyone has equal access to a quality education. And that's the best way that we can sort of keep people from engaging in criminal activity. Two is we also need to think about keeping people employed and giving people really meaningful opportunities at work, because if we do so, they're gonna be less inclined to engage in criminal behavior. And so I think before you get to the response to crime, before you get to the response to violent crime, you need to be thinking about the root causes of what leads people to engage in criminal activity. And you want to make sure that we're being as proactive as we can be to give people the educational work opportunities that gives them a course that they feel leads to economic stability. And then in response to some of the challenges that we're facing, One is, I think going back to the mental health crisis, I think a lot of crime that you're seeing, or a lot of incidents, especially sort of on a domestic level, there's a continuing mental health crisis that we need to address. And again, because it touches so many different things. And we also need to work with law enforcement to make sure that they have the resources that they need. I know a lot of local PDs and organizations, like, or not organizations, but like the sheriff's department, recruitment for law enforcement's been challenging right now. So we need to look at sort of both the root causes in terms of making sure we're addressing those, also making sure that we're responding to the environment as is today, and working with our local county, state partners to have a necessary response to make sure that we're enforcing our laws.
The loss of Damon Murray was a tragedy, but it was also a tragedy because he represented the best and brightest that the Hoboken Housing Authority community had to offer. He had a tough life, but he graduated from Hoboken High School. He was an all-star athlete in basketball, in football. He was a walk-on at Rutgers. And when he came back to Hoboken, he was working at Wallace Elementary School with the special needs community within that elementary school. So he was doing everything the right way. The weekend that he was murdered, that following week, I was ready to interview him to be a firefighter. He'd been certified by our list to be a firefighter, and we were on the cusp of having Damon on and swearing him in later this year as a firefighter. So he really exemplified the best and the brightest of public service and what we had to offer. I think a gun buyback program is sorely needed, not just in Hoboken, but Hudson County as a whole. So I'm in active discussions with Prosecutor Suarez about a possible gun buyback program. I've spoken to residents of the Housing Authority. They have been very receptive. They want guns off the street. They want economic opportunity. They want to make sure that the youth have something to do that would keep them educated, employed, and off the streets. And that will hopefully lower gun violence as we see it today.
All right, folks, we have one more segment to go for the New Jersey District-8 Congressional Forum highlights that we're showcasing exclusively for you here on The Pulse. You're not going to want to miss it. We will be right back with more from Congressman Rob Menendez and Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bhalla. Peter Biancamano back with you. Don't forget to watch us on cable access every Sunday and Monday at 9 a.m. Optimum Channel 18, Files Channel 46, and Comcast Channel 190. Also on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m., you can watch our show on our YouTube channel, and you can also binge watch all of our old shows. Who doesn't want to keep watching The Pulse with Peter B? We'll see you there.
Next up, with what feels like more homelessness than ever in New Jersey and across the country, what support would you give, and how would you support institutions like the Hoboken Homeless Shelter, which feeds and clothes the needy and attempts to get them back up on their feet? And what can we do from a federal level to support those kinds of programs?
Yeah, so I mean, with the unhoused population, there's two key components of it. One is the housing crisis that we're in. I think nationwide, we're 5 million units short of where we need to be. So that creates an incredibly challenging landscape, especially on the affordability side. We've worked with organizations in Newark, Bridges. So the organization's called Bridges, that works to keep people housed. They're an incredible nonprofit, and so uplifting their work, because the best way to deal with the unhoused population is to try to keep people who are currently housed, and then work with largely nonprofits and local partners to get people who are currently unhoused into a stable housing situation. The other side of it is, a lot of the challenges that the unhoused population face. There's just a real challenging economic environment out there for folks, but there's also a mental health crisis. that we need to continue to address, because a lot of the folks that you see in those vulnerable situations are struggling with mental health issues. And we need to continue, especially when you see the rise of domestic violence that occurred after or sort of the last couple of years. We need to make sure we continue to surge resources to survivors of domestic violence, because that's also a large unhoused population. We know that the veterans population is another. The percentage of veterans that are in our community versus the percentage of veterans who are currently unhoused is a staggering percentage. And I know that organizations here in Hoboken have done a great job to provide housing for veterans. But we need to, during Build Back Better, it would have been the largest investment in federal investment in housing in a generation. That bill is now the Housing Crisis Act that Maxine Waters is carrying, and we're a co-sponsor of it. The last thing I'll say is we've also introduced legislation for ESG funding, which is a federal formula that goes to states administer it to counties, and making sure that Hudson County has the full amount that it should be allocated. And there's just like a funding mechanism that we've tried to address to ensure that they have robust funding. But again, this is one of the most challenging issues that we have going on. There's no one silver bullet to it because there's so many component pieces of it. Again, there's the housing crisis, there's the mental health crisis, there's the veterans of survivors of domestic violence. There's a lot of different parts of it, and we have to address each slice of it to have a comprehensive approach to making sure that people have stable housing. Safe, stable housing is the goal. So a lot of work that really starts at the local level, but we need to be a partner at the federal level. Sorry, I know I said the last thing I'll say, but this is such a critically important issue because it touches so many things. Maxine Waters is now hosting like a task force. We had our first meeting this week on the housing crisis because it directly impacts the unhoused population.
We've already done innovative things as well as things that we have to necessarily do in order to address the crisis of people who are unhoused. One of my very first initiatives working with the Department of Community Affairs in Trenton and unfortunately now past Lieutenant Governor Oliver was a state-city partnership to create housing opportunities and also partnering with our local hospital that is, as a charity care hospital, is saddled with the financial burdens associated with the unhoused population to inject $250,000 to find housing for 25 eligible residents. That was a partnership at the state, county, and local level to find real life solutions to make sure that we tackle and have real results on the homelessness issue. So it is also a holistic approach that you need to take. We have opened the Office of Constituent Services in Hoboken, and as a part of that office, we've hired 2 social workers because too many times people think of this as a responsibility of the local police department, and I see it as a matter of humanity, as a humanitarian issue. Some people do not want to be homeless. It's because of economic conditions, increase after the pandemic. People are simply sometimes only one paycheck away from being unhoused. So giving people the opportunities, partnering with nonprofits like Easter Seals, so that we can make sure that people have resume training, job interview training, to make sure that they can get the employment opportunities to generate income to afford an apartment. We've taken that approach. And finally, we've done through the Office of Constituent Services and our social workers had mobile office or mobile shower units where people can get a haircut, take a shower, freshen up and whatever they need to get to their next place. And that has been an outstanding success. We've had 2 of them now, I believe, over the course of the last year. But again, it is a very challenging issue. It's a national issue. It's not immune to this, or particular to only this district. And we're doing everything we can in Hoboken to address it head on and proactively.
Back to housing for just a moment on a very important question here in Hoboken. Do you support rent control? Why or why not?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important mechanism, especially so much of housing is governed at a local level, between either zoning laws that you deal with density or rent control ordinances to make sure that people have, affordable places to live. And with rent control, it's also an enforcement issue, which varies again by municipality to make sure that if there are existing rent control ordinances and laws, that they're being properly enforced, because that's something that we see sort of get overlooked in an enforcement context. But yeah, support rent control.
I support rent control wholeheartedly. Before I ran for elected office, I served as Hoboken's rent board attorney for about 2 years. And when I got elected to city council, I was the lead author and sponsor of then Z88, which reformed rent control to make it both more equitable for landlords and for tenants. Rent control is an imperfect, I would submit, form of affordable housing. There's no income eligibility requirement, so you can make 7 figures, but still be eligible for a rent-controlled apartment. And that's why I say it's an imperfect form of affordable housing, but it's still necessary. If you read the preamble of the rent control ordinance in Hoboken passed in 1973, it says that the purpose of rent control is to protect tenants. So we've injected through Z88 protections against results that would have really deflated rents. So a landlord can apply for what's called a hardship increase. If they develop and invest in the property, they can apply for what's called a capital improvement surcharge. There are property tax surcharges, water and sewer surcharges, and courts have ruled that our rent control ordinance and the injection of these equitable, I say equitable in the meaning of fairness, not the financial sense, the ability to exercise equity integrated within the ordinance being something that has been upheld by the courts to support rent control and make sure that these laws are not unconstitutional. We will fight tooth and nail. I will fight tooth and nail against any landlord attempt, including the current referendum, to diminish the number of rent control units in the city of Hoboken. We are under assault in Hoboken by, frankly, one of your sponsors, the Miles Square Taxpayer Association, who wants to eliminate effectively rent control and diminish the number of rent controlled units in Hoboken. We need to fight against that because affordable housing is a human right, and it's also a crisis that we need to address head on. I'm not always the smartest guy in the room, and I have the self-awareness to admit that, but on this one, I can say that I know a lot about the issue, and I fully support rent control.
We're going to move on to more of a global issue here. Congressman, if China attacks Taiwan, which manufactures 90% of the most advanced computer chips in the world, would you support U.S. use of force in defense of our ally?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple parts of that question. One is, when we saw the supply chain issue in the 117th Congress, they passed the CHIPS Act. So we can return a lot of high-end manufacturing of high-end technology back to the United States. So we're less reliant on foreign countries, even those that are allies of ours, to ensure that we have a resilient supply chain here. I mean, if you remember from a couple of years ago, they couldn't finish the production of cars because there was all these critical chips that were being produced overseas. So, Congress acted and made sure that we're bringing back that manufacturing to the United States. Two is, it may seem unrelated, but, people know that as it relates to the ongoing war in Ukraine, a lot of global actors are looking at how the U.S. and other Western powers respond to the ongoing war and whether we continue to support Ukraine with Russia's ongoing invasion there, because that sort of will dictate what other folks like China think about doing as they think about how they may engage with Taiwan. So we need to be taking care of things in this moment, knowing that that's a possibility and doing whatever we can to prevent that from happening. I mean, I think there's things that we could have done vis-a-vis Ukraine to lessen the likelihood of what happened happening. And we need to have that same sort of forward thinking as it relates to Taiwan and making sure that we're trying to create parameters that would prevent China from engaging Taiwan, because that's the best possible outcome. And so I think before you even get to how we would respond from a military perspective, in this moment, we should be doing everything that we can to prevent that from happening.
All right, folks, we hope you enjoyed the New Jersey District 8 Candidate Forum highlight show. And folks, we couldn't have put this on without our wonderful sponsors for the evening. Again, they are the Mile Square Taxpayers Association, Joe Barry, State Senator Raj Mukherjee, County Commissioner Chair Anthony Romano, Anthony Vetrano of the White-Kurt Realty Group, the Hoboken Democratic Committee, Hoboken Council members Tiffany Fisher, Ruben Ramos, and Michael Russo, and Jersey City Councilman Yusuf Saleh. We thank you for sponsoring tonight's event. And a special shout out to Director of Facilities here at the Hoboken Board of Education, Tim Callaghy, and the Hoboken Board of Education for this wonderful facility. Folks, don't forget to vote. The primary election is Tuesday, June the 4th. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and we hope you enjoyed it. All right, folks, join us next week for The Pulse on everything you need to know. I'm Peter Biancamano. I hope you have a great week, everybody.